One of the biggest misunderstandings when it comes to tools isn't about quality of tools. It's about understanding what they're utilized for and what they specialize in and how to use that to your advantage. So this knife might be one of the best multi-tools, not necessarily multi-tool, but multi-use tools ever made. And it's because of what it's specialized to do. So as I've been building the Bronco and working with people this week at work, there's a couple times where it's come up and we want to maximize capability while minimizing the space it takes up. And so let's talk about it. The crazy weather we've been having out here lately, we're doing this a little different, so we'll have like a little cooler chat, we'll call it today, and we'll just kind of talk about this concept a little bit, because I think it's important to understand when we think about tools. You know, we think about hand tools, but also we're using our vehicles as tools, we're using, you know, other things as tools sometimes. So anything you're utilizing to get a task done is really a tool. So when you think about that and you think about the way you're designing that tool, if you're customizing it like a vehicle, or you think about tools in general that you're carrying with you or considering purchasing, I think it's important to understand these concepts. Tools fall into a spectrum, and the spectrum goes from versatile tools that adequately accomplish multiple tasks to specialized tools that specialize in one specific task and do it perfectly. A good example of that is this gas meter wrench. And the reason I bring it up is there's just interchangeable heads for different sizes, but really this handle and these heads are designed for one task. So, traditionally you might use like a pipe wrench or something, whereas this is highly specialized to prevent injury and make your job easier, right? So to explain that a little bit more with something that we use a lot for space saver, let's look at screwdrivers to understand the spectrum. So this is a ratcheting screwdriver, and in the back here we can carry multiple bits, as we know. So we've got multiple Phillips and flathead bits in here, and this thing is awesome because it does a lot of jobs adequately in most cases. So we can use this for several different fastener sizes and it gets the job done a lot of the time. But when we start looking at, why do people buy a regular screwdriver, then we look at something like this and we compare it. Well, this number one Phillips is a lot shorter, but it's also a lot slimmer. So depending on where you're working, you might need a more specialized one. Another example of that is kind of this cabinet style screwdriver that's super long versus my ratcheting screwdriver, where I might need that extended reach. So we get into something more specialized and we lose versatility. Obviously, this 18-inch screwdriver here isn't going to fit in near as many places as a ratcheting, which won't fit in as many places as something like this, right? So as we're looking at building our toolkits, whether that's survival gear or anything like that, that's something to consider. What are you really giving up and what specialized tasks are you looking to perform? Now we've talked about the spectrum of versatility to specialized, let's take a look at what we'll call the multi-tool trap. So the reason I refer to it as a trap is there's a couple ways you can go wrong with the multi-tool. I've got two very good multi-tools right here. I've got a Gerber flick, this is one-handed open, and then I've got a Leatherman wave. Both of these are very old, so we'll start with the Gerber. The Gerber is a one-handed opening plier. So this one is probably older than I am. It's probably a little over 30 years old. My dad's had this for a very long time and used the crap out of it. It's an excellent tool. It has a lot of useful features back here. The knives lock open, and there's just a lot of tools, right? It's well thought out for its use. And where you look at something like this is if you want a plier forward multi-tool, where you're using the pliers a lot more often. So think shop setting, maybe if you're doing a lot of firearm stuff, you might need quicker access to a plier versus other things potentially. So that's the Gerber flick. The other one that is another very good tool is this Leatherman. This is a Leatherman wave. So this was when they first came out. I got this one, oh, probably 20 years ago. So these ones have the knives on the outside. They've changed the design over the years a little bit. They've added more, but the concept's the same. And then you open it up and you have your pliers like a classic Leatherman. So there's my pliers. The other thing that's kind of cool about the Leatherman that they added versatility was giving you interchangeable bits. So this little flip bit, you know, you can throw it in there. You have two different ones that come with it. And then kind of the cool thing about it is there's a ton of these just bit panels that you can get, and I just got this big one, and it just slides in the case with the Leatherman, and I keep this in the truck with me because most of the time for me, when I need when I'm reaching for this in the truck specifically, I'm looking for a knife. I'm looking for something to open up a package or something like that. So having one ready and available easily is great. I'm not scrambling to rip out my pliers. I'm looking for a knife. So this works for me. But that's where the trap comes in, because you can get a tool like this that has a lot of the same tools as the Gerber, but it's not as well thought out. The tools in it don't really make sense. So in this one specifically, there's a couple things that I don't care for, and this is just a cheap, I think it's a performance tool. I have no idea where I got this. I keep it in my gun bag, but there's no locking feature, so that's not great. It's got this fish scaler on it, which I don't really, care for that on this particular tool. And then I've got a Phillips screwdriver there, but that's closer to like a number 1 versus a number 2 that I think is more common. So, I mean, that's just going to result in you stripping a bunch of stuff out. So, just not a great design tool in general. The tool load doesn't really make sense, but that's kind of what you get with these budget tools. And there's some I've seen that boast, higher tool loads, giving you a lot more in here, but then you get these big bulky handles, and kind of quality and cost aside, the tool load just doesn't make sense, and it creates kind of an awkward tool. You can see how thick this is compared to like my Leatherman. It's much thicker. And same thing with the Gerber. It's just this big bulky tool, right? So that's the first trap that you fall into, is thinking more is better, right? And it's not necessarily the case. So when we're trying to maximize capability but minimize what we're having to carry with us and weight and stuff, and space, when you're looking at your tools in general, look at that. Look at what the tool load is and is actually usable. The other trap that you fall into is you look at these two tools and you're comparing them for yourself, and you're just looking at reviews online, and somebody loves the Gerber and somebody loves the Leatherman, and their reasonings sound good, but you're not really looking at what you're going to be using it for. These are both excellent tools. There's nothing wrong with either of them. They're both great, but it really just depends on what you're using it for. My dad is in an auto shop all the time. He's constantly needing pliers. This is the best tool for him. This Leatherman would drive him nuts if he was having to pop this thing in and fold it out every time he had to use the pliers, versus just one-handed open and it's ready to go, right? So it's all about use case. That kind of brings us to our next topic of camp tools, right? When you're looking at camp tools, there's a lot of things that I've been looking at to try and put in the Bronco to save space and potentially, work better together. And really what it boils down to is you look at the versatility of the tool versus specialization, and I think you can mix and match and pick something that works very well. So in my truck, you've seen from my other videos, I carry this E-tool. So these are awesome. I mean, you can use it as a shovel. It's got a saw that I've never used, but it does have a saw on one side, but it also has a sharper edge that you can split kindling with. So this is a great tool for splitting kindling, and it's obviously a great shovel for its size and its weight and stuff. I wouldn't want to go dig a huge trench with it personally, but that's what they're designed for, right? So this is a great tool. If we look at the wood chopping aspect only, the other thing you can pick is like a hatchet, right? A hatchet's nice because you get a hammer on the back as well. And then kind of one of the things they've used in this Gerber to make it more versatile is the empty space in the handle they've taken up with a little saw. But in this case, I've never really used the saw. I just don't see a need for it personally. Some of you might have a different opinion, and that's fine. But for me, I've never really used the saw because with the hatchet, I can take off any small limbs. You know, if I want to take down a small tree, maybe. I've never had to do that, but you know, dead limbs are great. It's great for processing kindling again. But that kind of brings us to our next thing. Is if you get a specialized knife, you might be able to do the task even better. So in this case, in the Bronco, I might pick something like this. So this is a Montana Knife Company redacted. It used to be the Sear 25, but it's made to be a survival knife. So this thing is excellent for processing kindling and processing firewood. It excels in that by itself, on its own. It does a great job. You can baton this through wood. You can use it to, you know, carve. You could use it to process game if you needed to. But I mean, it's just a really, really versatile knife. But it's not right for everybody. Right? This wouldn't be a great everyday knife necessarily for most people, but as just a survival camp type knife, this is awesome. And actually, since I bought this, I found myself reaching for this more often than I reached for the hatchet. The hatchet didn't even come out in our last camp trip because I could process all the wood with this. I'll show you a little video of processing wood with all three of these. Obviously, it's a super dry 2x4, but this is just way more accurate. And I really like using it. So that paired with something like this e-tool can save a ton of space, a lot of weight, especially when this is folded up, and I can get a lot of the same tasks done because of how versatile both tools are. Kind of last thing to demonstrate this and show how big of a mistake you can make just by buying the wrong tool. We're going to look at two knives here. So we've got our redacted, and we've got another nice knife with this Opinel. So this Opinel is an Explorer model Opinel, and it's a nice knife. But again, I wouldn't necessarily want to use these for the exact same tasks. I wouldn't want to baton this Opinel through a piece of wood personally, because if you look at the spines on both of these, the Opinel is much, much thinner than the redacted. So not having the tough spine doesn't give me confidence in smacking it hard with another piece of wood to drive it through something, right? But this Opinel is a very sharp knife, so I might feel more confident, you know, processing like something more delicate like a fish even with this versus the redacted that's a little bit bigger and bulkier. The other thing that's kind of cool about the Opinel, if you need it, is this one does have a little hook, so like a little gut hook, right, for processing game. And it's also got inside of here a ferro rod. So if you're looking to add versatility with fire starting capability and only carry it in one knife, you know, this might be another option, because with this ferro rod we can take it and we can throw spark, and it does an awesome job at that, right? Where I'm not getting that with my redacted. So again, looking at the versatility and how it's used, this does carry more tools, kind of like the multi-tool here, but it does it in a way that's not cumbersome, and they make sense for what the knife is. Again, either way, either of these knives would be a good choice, just depending on what you're using them for. It's not going to be, the redacted is not going to be a great choice for everybody, but if you're just looking for a great camp / survival knife, this is probably one of the best ones I've ever used. And so if you want to follow along and see how I'm going to build out this Bronco to give me the capability I need, consider subscribing. We've done a lot of videos with the F-150 already, putting together some kits for that, and they've been a lot of fun. So I'd like to see you follow me on these journeys through setting these up, because we're having fun doing it. Now, the goal here isn't to carry the best tool for every job. It's to give me enough capability to do everything I'm really realistically going to face out there while we're just having fun. So focusing on having the best tools for the most common tasks and expanding capability from there is really the way that I look at it. Thanks for watching, and we've got some big videos coming up ahead, so we'll see you in those in the next couple weeks.